Hello and welcome to your weekly wander through the woods of electric cars from the team here at electrifying.com. This week we'll be talking about buying new cars, a budget BYD and free electricity. We'll also be answering your electric car questions and dipping into the postbag to find out your views on everything electric. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Mike.
And I'm Tom.
How are you, Tom? You been away? What have you been up to?
I'm good, yeah. I've been away. So I've had a few days off with the family and we went to Rome, which I know you're very into your Italian things, Mike.
See?
And enjoyed it greatly, although it was ridiculously hot.
You're mad.
Can't do anything, just want to hide in the hotel type hot. But we braved it and we went out. And what I found interesting, because I'm a car geek, is that in Rome there aren't any nice cars. There's nothing. You go to London, you go to Paris, there's always something nice, isn't there? There's a Bentley or a Range Rover or Ferrari or something, but there's nothing. They've all got Fiat Pandas, basically. Now, there were a couple of electric cars. One was a Renault Twingo. So, the last generation Twingo, the petrol engine we got had the engine in the back.
Yeah, it's a rare
There's an electric one of those, which is a car I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And I thought, makes a lot of sense as electric. But I saw a couple of those. Lots of Citroen Amis in their kind of natural habitat of being in a city and having plastic panels, so it doesn't matter if they get knocked. We went to Vatican City and the police drive i3s, which I know you'd appreciate, Mike. They were just doing like laps of the thing, patrolling in their i3 with not producing any emissions.
Excellent.
There was another strange kind of AMI rival, I suppose, which was a car called a Yo-Yo, which I instantly had to come back and look up. And apparently it's an Italian Hong Kong conglomerate who've produced this little tiny city car. And it's got removable batteries, like, we talked about that silence. So you can take the batteries out and swap them. Quite a funky looking thing, kind of a cross between an AMI and a Twizy, I'd say, kind of that sort of styling. Wow. So, yeah, those were my car spots of Italy and some old rubbish that I quite liked.
Yeah, because usually your idea of a holiday is like 2 days at a BCA car auction, aren't they? So this is quite unusual for you to actually go abroad and have time away.
The wife and kids were taking pictures of 2,000-year-old buildings and all this amazing churches and things, and there's me going, "Oh, look, there's a Lancia Y10." Yeah, excellent. That was me. What about you? What have you been up to?
This and that. I've got a BYD Dolphin. I've got the finally launched the entry level BYD Dolphin, the Active, which has been the kind of price point. Everyone says, "Oh, the Dolphin starts with 26 grand, whatever." That was always the headline figure, but it's only now or in the next couple of weeks that I've actually launched that. So that arrived yesterday. So I haven't really done a lot of miles in it, and I don't think I'm allowed to talk to it until we've been on the launch as well. But I mean, what I can tell you is a few sort of basic figures about it. It's the cheapest car by £1,000. The boost is 27,195. So the things you lose out on, you get 16-inch alloys instead of 17-inch. You get a 7 kilowatt charger instead of 11 kilowatt charger, and you get a smaller motor. So it's 94 horsepower against 174 horsepower. But you get a longer range. You get 211 miles WLTP range instead of 195. Now, it's a grand difference, and I had a look at the monthlies, 20 quid a month. So would that be enough for you, Tom, if you were buying it on a monthly for those extra kind of bits and pieces?
94 horsepower versus 170.
74.
That's quite a lot, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, I like smaller wheels because I'm old and I don't like potholes and have a bad back, so I can live with that. Slower charging, might be a bit of a pain if you charge in public a lot, but yeah, that's a lot of horsepower for that. I think I'll save up
20 quid a month. You could probably justify. But then if you look at the finance, that PCP, it's 49 months. I mean, that's a long time, isn't it?
Oh, what are you going to be doing?
They'll have replaced. You think they'll have replaced it by then? I would have thought.
Yeah, you think about what happened in the last 49 months and just think, I can't commit to something for that long.
It's an awful, but that's become the norm now, hasn't it? I guess to get cars with a relatively high purchase price down to a kind of affordable level PCPs, which is that sort of magical £200-300 mark. They're having to do that, just add an extra year in, I guess. But anyway,
I think Voxhall. But Voxhall do like 60-month PCPs now, don't they?
It's like I got a shorter mortgage than that. Yeah, crikey. It's a seriously long time. But anyway, I'm driving it. I'm doing a longer distance in it tonight and tomorrow, so I'll report back in terms of how.
Yeah, I
Whether
actually
you
saw
really
my
missed that horsepower.
first. I saw my first BYD in the wild the other day. I'd never seen one except the press cars.
There
was
wasn't a
driving
demonstrator. Okay, yeah.
One.
What
No, I
was
just
it?
thought, I don't know, it was grey, and it just whizzed past, and I thought, oh, I wonder how they ended up in that. It's just a strange car to end up at, isn't it? Who's buying them? And I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, there's someone with an Atto 3 a couple of doors down that I want to walk past every morning, and I have exactly the same thing. I wonder what the thought process was with that one. Whether they might have, who knows? They might have watched our channel, Tom. They might have watched our videos and thought,
They might have done. Yeah. Have you been having trouble buying cars?
I haven't personally had a problem, but I'm buying a car. Well, not buying a car with my dad. I'm helping my dad buy a car now. He owns a Leaf, 62 kilowatt hour Leaf, and he's had that for 3 years, and he wants to chop out of it now. He's starting to feel the CHAdeMO squeeze, Tom. The CHAdeMO squeeze is happening. So he's, he does public charge quite a bit, and he's finding that although they do have sort of dual header charging places, charging points, invariably somebody's nicked in first and plugged in their CCS car, so he can't then get to the CHAdeMO. He's had that happen a couple of times and thinking about changing anyway. Cut a long story short, he shortlisted a few cars. He looks like a smart #1, #3 as well, and a Kia EV9 and a Cupra Born. But man alive, it's been hard work buying cars. He went to go and see a Cupra Born. They didn't have a demonstrator. They said, oh, the sales manager's got one, but he's not until after lunch. So they come back. And of course, the sales manager is living in it. So there's, the usual kind of filth. It's like one of Ginny's cars inside. It was, it was a bit of a mess. So
Can't
anyway,
be that bad.
I don't think it was quite that bad. Anyway, it wasn't exactly made to feel like this was, their sales drive was for this car. So there was that. And it's the kind of usual thing of phone calls not returned, no trade-in value. He's calling them up 3 times a day to try and find out, to get someone to give a price for something, and you kind of think, why is this so difficult? But on the flip side, I said to him, you should consider the Kia EV3, right? Because that wasn't on his shortlist because he's only looking at stuff that was on sale. So we went to the Kia EV3 experience, Tom, which was quite interesting.
Like a theme park.
It does sound like a theme park. It's actually to be fair, it's actually a really good way of seeing the car up front. It's like a touring road show going around all the dealers in the country, and it allows you to kind of sit in the car, have a prod and a poke. There's a EV3 expert there who goes through everything. He knows all his figures. He was brilliant. He was really, really good. It's a slightly strange experience going to a car dealer where they've cleaned everything out of the studio and they had the kind of smoke and mirrors, and I had to applaud the car at one point, which I find a bit odd, but everyone else seemed to go along with, so maybe that's just me. So yeah, that was good. And when I pulled into the parking area at the dealership, which they cleared, brilliant, clever, because the amount of times you've gone to car dealers, you can't even park your car when it's been serviced, can you? But they've done that. And there was a guy parked up next to me and waved and nodded, and I thought, oh gosh, do I know this guy? Because I've got a terrible memory for these things. Anyway, it's a chap called Rick who subsequently wrote on the comments from last week's podcast that said, "I'm sorry for waving at you. I recognise you from electrifying.com. I wanted to come and say hello, but I think I was busy sort of persuading my folks to do something." And so Rick, if you're listening to this, come and say hello next time, because I could have done with any distraction from the canapes and the chap going through the car and everything. So yes, but it was an interesting experience. But
you've been recognised. This is should we start doing sort of Mike Askew merch? Do you think? Have you got a fan base like
that's an idea? Isn't
Taylor
it?
Swift or something?
Yeah. I thought I'm in the same sentence as Taylor Swift. Thank you, Tom. That's really nice. But anyway, so yes, I mean I think he's still. My dad's probably sitting there on hold somewhere with a smart dealer or something at the moment, trying to persuade them to sell him a car. But given that we hear it's such hard work selling electric cars, it's from my experience this week, it's actually quite hard buying them as well. So yeah,
I wonder if it's just that the dealers don't like them, or they don't think they're the future, or whatever it is. I mean, there are some dealers who are obviously quite engaged in the whole electric thing, aren't there? But other ones, maybe they're just not bothered. I don't know. Weird.
I don't know.
But there must be some good ones out there.
Yeah.
Let us know if there's a good electric car dealer. Yeah.
Yes, please do in the comments below, and we'll give them a shout out on them. I must just add, Tom, that last week a chap called Patrick Harrison emailed us to say that he likes the Kia EV3, but he's only seen it has a light dash, and he doesn't want a light dash because it reflects on the windscreen. And I said at the end of the last podcast, I'm going to go and have a look at it in a few hours. It doesn't have a light dashboard. All the UK ones have a dark dashboard, but it is strangely shiny. It's very shiny, but that may have been under the lights. Everything looks odd inside, doesn't it? You move anything inside, you get some odd reflections and things, but definitely a dark one.
Try that on that BYD where you've got it, because that's the car that I think's had the worst reflections I've ever seen. There was once when I couldn't drive it because in bright sunshine, you just can't see out the windscreen.
In a Dolphin?
So maybe,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the British
have a look.
summertime.
I don't know if it's that particular colour. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking at it now. I mean, the sun hasn't been out for 3 days, so I can't really tell you. But if it does between now and then, when the next podcast comes out, I will say. So, anyway, what else has caught your attention this week, Tom?
Yeah, well, I haven't been doing very many sexy things this week, but I've been looking at spreadsheets and figures and things, and they're interesting to me. So maybe it's interesting to somebody else out there. So, first of all, there's a story today about the income from ULzon. Which across all of them since March 21, which is when the London one expanded to go inside the North and South Circular.
Yeah,
all the schemes have taken in from the fees and the fines £418 million. Oof. Now that's the profit, I suppose. So that's after they've taken away all the admin and everything else, and the people chopping them down and smashing the windscreens on the vans and things. But what I didn't realise is that all that money has to go to schemes to help London's transport or the transport in the local area. So in Birmingham, where they've got a scheme, it's gone towards cycle lanes and buying hydrogen buses and things. So I thought that was quite interesting. It's not just them dragging it in. It makes me feel slightly better. Yeah. And in London, they're because it's expanding again next week, you can have £2,000 off a car or van if you've got one which doesn't meet the ULO's requirements. So it all goes to help that, which it makes me feel slightly happier about it. I think I always got slightly sulky about the Heathrow one, where to make the air cleaner around one of the largest airports in the world with Airbuses going overhead all the time, you had to pay £12.50 if you went in a 2014 diesel.
How much of that £418 million is Manos, do you think? Because every time he has to take a flight for electrifying, he used to take, before it died, his old BMW, didn't he? So, and he did tell me a figure. It was cracking on for 4 figures, I think, last time in terms of ULEZ bills. But oh God, it's a lot, wasn't it? Anyway, what else?
The other thing I've been looking at quite closely is electric vans, which we hadn't looked at for a long while on the site. And I thought, I'll have another look and do some, who's got the longest range and that sort of thing. And the technology on them is moving so quickly, maybe faster than cars, because it was, be lucky to get 100 miles out of a van, which didn't matter if it was in town because people knew what they were doing in terms of mileage. But now that there's a Renault, which I think is the longest of all the ranges, 285 miles range. I mean, it's got a big old battery, but it's a big old van. So, that's amazing, I think.
It is.
So I might get a few in to test because I quite fancy a van. It's nice things, aren't they?
They are. They are.
And the last thing I've been looking at, supermarkets, and they're charging again. And Tesco's in the lead again.
Really?
Continues to expand. Sainsbury's snapping at its heels. But Asda has kind of given up, which is odd.
Really?
They didn't even bother answering. But I think they've given up. This isn't going to mean much to anybody who's not in the UK. But Tesco, huge supermarket, and a lot of its stores have got electric chargers now.
Are they all destination chargers? Are they all stuff, AC stuff? Do they have any rapid chargers? Tesco, I can't say.
Yeah, they do. So
do they? Okay.
Yeah, they do. The confusing thing about the Tesco's I've come across is that the slow 7 kilowatt chargers
Yeah.
look like rapid chargers because they're incorporated into like an advertising,
Oh, yeah,
like a digital advertising hoarding.
Yes, because
And
they
then
used to
you've
do
got 22 kilowatt.
Yes, I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Yeah,
22 kilowatt ones, which look like 7 kilowatt ones. And then the rapid ones don't look like rapid chargers. They're quite small and compact, but the fastest ones are 75 kilowatts. So they're not hugely quick. But if you go and buy a meal deal and you're on 75 kilowatts and sit and eat it in the car, you're going to get a reasonable amount of charge, I suppose.
yeah,
But the 22s are the ones which are really interesting because they're cheaper. If you're in the store for 40 minutes, which is what a long meandering shop might take, you're going to get a decent amount of miles for a reasonable cost, I think.
I forgot. Yeah, no, and now I can picture those Tesco's rapid ones. Yeah, because weren't they tied in with Pod Point or something? Well, I seem to remember
Yeah,
at
it's
one point.
still run by PodPoint.
Is it? Okay.
And you still have to go through. Yeah, you still have to go through a PodPoint app to get them. You don't get any
Yeah.
like Tesco points or anything for them,
No.
unlike Sainsbury's where you get
Yeah, you can get nectar
'cause that's
points.
run by
Yeah,
them. Yeah, but it used to be Volkswagen. So it used to be sponsored by Volkswagen, and
That's
presumably
right.
they got all your data when you signed up. And now it's Voxhall. So I think if you buy a Voxhall privately and go through the whole thing, you get some free miles at Tesco charging or PodPoint charging at least. We did a survey, didn't we, where we looked at people's favourite places to charge it, and outside of home, supermarkets was the favourite because I presume if you need to charge because you're on a journey, then you can stop there and you know that you can go and buy tonight's dinner, some cat litter and a meal deal and sit there and eat it. But also, if you are just going to the supermarket anyway, it's a perfect place where your car's not doing anything otherwise other than sitting there. So it's a great place to top up. And if you're on a rapid charger, you can you probably get a week's charge in there. If you can't charge at home, that would probably do it, wouldn't it?
it would. You really would kill two birds with one stone there. Yeah, my local Sainsbury's had when it was built had about 10 Pod Point. There were 3 kilowatt ones. I mean, they were really slow. I mean, you'd need to be there a long time to get any meaningful charge out of that. And they ripped them out about a year ago because they were constantly broken. And then this great big thing went up in the middle of the car park with all the fencing and everything. And I'd seen a lot of other Sainsbury's getting rapid chargers going, and it's right by the rail system in Weymouth. So I know it would have a really good grid connection there. And so I waited, and people said to me, "Oh, what's going there?" I said, "It'll be rapid chargers, I'm sure. Yeah, it'd be brilliant." Anyway, it wasn't. It was a new place for do click and collect. So there was no rapid charge. There's no chargers at all there now. So yeah, it was kind of annoying, but I don't know. Maybe it will come. Who knows? But I mean, Weymouth's fairly well served for rapid chargers, so it's not a huge problem. But well, there we go. It might come. Tom, some people want our buying advice again.
Oh, the fools.
Don't say that. People have taken our advice and acted upon it. Okay, this week we have 2. One's a charging one and one is a car one. I'll start with the car one. Brummie's Altano 81. The names are getting worse, aren't they? Great show, as always. I'm glad I mentioned used cars for cash. I mentioned I nicked your Barnard's Bargains last week, Tom, and I did cars you buy with cash, not PCP. I don't want to tread on your toes. I've been looking at a replacement for our 12-year-old Ford C-Max, and I'm keen for a used EV. There's a cash buy, £15,000 of a similar size to his C-Max. He's got a family of 4 with teenagers, and he needs boot space of around 400 to 450 litres and a sort of around 200-mile range. At the moment, I'm between an MG5, an MG ZS, Citroen EC4, or a Volkswagen ID3. Which of these would you recommend? Is there anything else better?
Well, MG5 and MG ZS, I think are quite good. They feel a bit dated now, don't they, compared to some of the other stuff? But 15 grand, you probably can't complain too much. I mean, the MG5, which is a car I like very much, but there are so many taxis around here. It's a bit like a Prius. I just don't think you could have one, because if you stopped at some traffic lights, someone would climb in and presume you're an Uber. ZS is fine. EC4 is an interesting one. I don't know if the boot's big enough, but they are cheap.
There's
you get
loads of them as
pre-registered one with delivery mile, for 15 grand. And the other one, which is quite interesting at that sort of size, is the DS3 electric, which again, I've never seen one really. It's a very rare car, but they are cheap, presumably because nobody knows what they are.
Yeah.
ID3, I don't think the boot's big enough, is it? I mean, there's plenty of space in the back for teenagers, but from memory, the boot is 385 litres.
Yeah,
Because we kind of use that as a benchmark for other stuff, don't we?
Yeah.
And the same goes for a Cupra Born, which I prefer to the ID3 personally. But if you can maybe put those 15 litres somewhere else, then I suppose it meets the criteria. Mocha, probably not big enough, is it? But they're cheap
tight
too.
in the back, innit? We had with that one, and it was like comedy trying to get out of that, wasn't it? If you got two teenagers, they're not small.
Yeah,
Tend to be anyway.
Yeah, 15 grand. I think is going to be the last generation Kona, so that's got a teeny boot, hasn't it?
Yeah, the Nero was bigger, wasn't it? The E-Nero.
Yeah, it was. So an E-Nero might
yeah, I
work,
think that was
it?
cracking
That's
on
worth
for 450 litres of boot space. I think that would be quite a nice thing. It'd be probably the pre-facelift one, not pre-face, the old one anyway. We're calling it the old one. But, I think EC4 is a really good shout actually, because there's a lot of them. I think, but EC4X is probably even cheaper because again, nobody buys saloons. And often saloons have huge boots. You know, they always kind of think they're going to be less practical than a hatch, but unless you actually need that aperture to get stuff in, it might be worth a shout. I'm sure you can get that's probably a few £100 cheaper for the X, which is the kind of odd saloon one. But I think that would be
aperture is a good word, Mike. I'm gonna make a note. Must use it more.
I like to use aperture. It's good. Right. Next question. So we've answered that.
Talking of Kia Niro EVs.
Yes.
Ian F 3536 says, thank you for getting me into cars. I love my new Kia Niro EV. You're welcome. Can I ask some thoughts on charging apps and subscriptions? I seem to be collecting a few of these, and Kia now want me to download their one. They all want my credit card details. I don't use public chargers very often. I always drive in the UK. Many chargers use contactless cards, so do I need these apps? Advice, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I would say you probably only need two, really, don't you? If you're an Octopus customer, or even if you're not an Octopus customer, the Electriverse card seems to cover most of the bases, doesn't it? And you get a discount as well from memory.
Yeah, you do. Not a lot, but so it's worth having.
Yeah, you get some, and there's no subscription fee and that sort of. And if you have an Octopus tariff, then it just goes straight onto your electricity bill, doesn't it? So
you
don't
the
have
option.
to give your credit card details.
Yeah.
The Kia one, I seem to think gives a little bit of a discount as well. My neighbours have just got back from a trip around France in their EV6, and they said their Kia card was by far the easiest to use in Europe. Now, Ian says he's not going to go anywhere except the UK, but it was interesting. I thought that it does work everywhere, so they just swipe it, and they didn't have any bother at all. They said there are a lot more in France, and it's a lot easier than charging here.
I think. I mean, I had when I bought the Ionic, I had charged my Hyundai, which would be the same thing I would imagine that as Kia's as Ian's being offered. It was really good for Ionity charges. I think it was like 40p for an Ionity charger instead of the sort of 69p or 72p, whatever it became. So it was really good for that, and there were loads of points in Europe. It seemed to be more of a European-centric system, that Kia and Hyundai one. It did have other ones on there, but I didn't renew it when it finished because I didn't. And I originally, when I first got my i3, I had a BP Pulse one because I used the rapid chargers quite a bit, and it was kind of broke even, maybe even saved me a bit of money a couple of months. And then the months you don't use it, you're still hosing £7, to a kind of. By the time I'd actually stopped it, which was about 6 months ago, I'd probably wasted a lot. I'd wasted a lot of money paying £7 a month for that. And the originally was, if you only had the membership, you had the card, which entitled you to use those ones that, my little thumb, entitled you to use those chargers that used to be at Westfield. Remember those ones that we used when we used to go for a meeting?
Yeah.
So I kept it for that. But even they stopped working, so I didn't bother using that. So I would say no. Ian, I can understand the temptation to, because when I first got an electric, I signed up to everything. I got all the key fobs, I got all the kind of bits and pieces. And now I don't bother. For the tuppence halfpenny you save on this, that, and the other. Certainly the ones where you pay a monthly subscription, I wouldn't bother unless you're a really heavy user, you're using it all the time. Bonnet do something similar, don't they, or whatever it's called now? It's changed hands, isn't it?
I think when I was doing one particularly long journey or a couple of long journeys in a month when my son was going to university open days, and I signed up for Bonnet for 1 month because I worked out it would be worth my while for the discounts I'd get on charging. So if you're going to do a long journey, maybe just do it that way.
Yeah, I think exactly. No, I would agree entirely on that. So I wouldn't necessarily. Yes, Ovo bought Bonnet, Tom. It's called Ovo Charge now. So, but they're still existing as Bonnet, I think. So Ian, not too sure. I wouldn't go too near it. We've had some we've had some good comments and bits and pieces this week, haven't we, Tom? From the last week's podcast.
Your rattly car.
Yes,
your rattling car seems to have got some. You, for anyone who didn't listen to it, your Ionic 5, Mike, developed a rattle after you camped in it.
Yes,
which presumably was like your key slipping out of your pocket while you were snoozing or something, was it, and going down the side of the.
I've yet to detect it,
but. The Laser Hive 3368 says, my dad, who is a lifelong professional mechanic and garage owner, always advised me that I should never be worried about the rattles, but I should instead worry when the rattling stopped, as it probably meant something had dropped off. Now, I have a story linked to this, which was that an old friend of mine had a Peugeot 205, and whenever he started up, there was a puff of smoke out the exhaust. And I said, you really need to get that looked at because it's not great. He's like, yeah, I'm just a bit short of cash. I'll not worry about it yet. Anyway, then one day he drove off, no smoke. I said, have you fixed your car? He said, no, I haven't. And he said, and it's going better than ever. And I'm like, you might want to check your oil. Yeah, I will. Drove off the next day, comes back on a recovery truck. It just ran out of oil.
So he's seized up.
It burnt it all off. So it went really well while it didn't have any because the engine's not having to pump oil about before it just went bang.
So there is a degree there's a degree of truth to that, isn't there?
Yes, when things stop, it's for no reason, it's not good.
Brilliant. We've got Frankie.
Frankie.
Do you want to do the next ones?
Yeah. He says, oh, yes, I suffered the dreaded boot rattle not long after I collected my Ionic 5. 3 visits to the dealership later, the rattle is cured with a load of new parts. I've been left with a clunk when the boot opens. I can live with that as I love driving the car. Clocked up 21,000 miles in the first year, including 5,000 around Italy with no other issues.
That's pretty good, isn't it? That's really good. Now, I had the dreaded Ionic boot. It's like a booming, rattly, squeaky noise, and it's well documented. If you type that into Google, there's almost forums on this thing. It's really annoying. I have cured mine. I'll take a picture of it, and Manos can put it on the podcast if you're watching on the YouTube app. But it's a bit Heath Robinson-ish. It's basically the bottom end of the trim of the actual boot touches the sort of bottom of the aperture, Tom. So there's 2 bits of plastic that end up touching. No matter how you adjust everything, these 2 just kind of bang against each other, and it creates that noise. So I've just got some of that foam, that sort of half, the Velcro, the bit that isn't the hook, the furry bit of Velcro, sticky Velcro.
Yeah,
on a little strip of that across the back. Silence. It's taken me 2 years to get to that point, but it's a really good fix, and I would recommend it. I would take a picture of it, but it's fixed it for me. Anyway, Frankie, but it sounds like, you've sorted it out. But I certainly couldn't stomach 3 visits to the dealers to get a squeak fix. That would drive me absolutely insane.
If the dealer's at the end of your street, it's fine. But if the dealer's, a half-hour drive away, what are you going to do? How many times? And how many times the dealer, it's under warranty, are they going to want to take things apart to get to a little squeak? What's the cutoff where they say it's not worth us replacing the back of your car because it's a slight squeak? Turn up the radio, mate.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I would agree completely with
that one. There's another one for Rattlegate, which is Gazinet. Perhaps it's Gazinet in the sort of French accent.
Might be French. Yeah. Exactly.
Hi guys, with regards to Rattlegate, I had one of the very first ID4 first editions, and it must have been made by the cleaner at Volkswagen as it was full of rattles. It went back to the dealership a few times, and if anything, they made it worse. I eventually fixed most of the rattles myself over the first year of ownership. I now have a 3-year-old Jaguar I-Pace with 63,000 miles and not a rattle to be heard.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
if you're the cleaner at Volkswagen, you might take umbrage at this. You might say, "Oh, I'm very good at my job." It's like I think that's a bit harsh on the cleaner at Volkswagen. I mean, like they've only got one of the entire company.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. But I mean, it's we hadn't.
Do you remember that brilliant Volkswagen advert?
Yes, with the earring. Yeah,
the earring. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can probably look it up on YouTube after this if anybody's not seen it. But it was a Golf advert, wasn't it? And there's a squeak, and it's driving the bloke wild, and his wife's asleep beside him in the passenger seat, and they pull into a garage, and he pushes the car around, and then it's her earring, so he just gives it a little drop of oil. And it was, if only everything in life was as reliable as a Volkswagen.
It's a really good. It's one of the classic ads. Yeah, really good. What else we got, Tom?
And the last one, there's about Rattlegate.
Yes.
Jebarel, maybe? Do you reckon that's Jebarel? Had a Fiat Punto years ago and had a rattle right from the start. Drove me mad. I ended up with the sales guy in the boot driving around until we discovered it. It was a fault in the rear seat hinge. I had to wait for the new part to come from Toledo. Weeks of annoying rattle. I'm with you about being OCD on rattles. I am too.
Imagine a Fiat dealer has, when someone says, "I've got a rattle," they must, I mean, I'm not saying they're badly put together, but certainly there was a period at which Fiat were kind of well known for squeaky and rattly cabins, weren't they? So I imagine at that sort of era, Punto era, I imagine there have been quite a lot. So yeah. And there we go. Right, on the subject of buying a left-hand drive car, Tom, we had a really nice puzzler last week of somebody who was they're going to go and live in Spain. It was Steve Jordan. He said he's going to go and live in Spain in 2 years' time. Didn't know whether to just buy, I think it was an EV on a lease for 2 years, whether to buy something here, then import it to Spain, or buy a left-hand drive electric car here and then take it over when he's ready. I mean, I don't think that's a lot of hassle. Yeah. So Richard Heisman on YouTube. Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to reply, Richard. It's a long old message. I'm going to paraphrase the bits and pieces here because, but if you're considering doing this, have a look at episode 42 of the podcast, and about halfway down is Richard's explanation. It's really useful, really handy, a lot of good information. He says, as for the buying conundrum of your listener who was considering buying a left-hand drive car, you have to consider a lot of things like the import duties and tax, which can be 5 or 10% of the car value, depending on the country and the age of the vehicle. He said, having had to sort this issue for my daughter living temporarily on a visa in Spain for what will be 2 years is really difficult. Depending on your own circumstances, it sounds like less hassle to have a UK car while living in the UK and then buying in Spain once you're settled in Spain, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But again, he was just trying to avoid that hassle of having to buy and sell again. So, but thank you, Richard. That was really useful.
And on the subject of electric cars in films, we've had a few on that because last week Kate Sampson told us she'd bought a Mini because she loved the Italian Job. Everyone does, surely.
Yeah.
And wonder if we'd see an EV on film to inspire a generation to own one. Now, I personally know the most famous, surely, electric car in films, which is the DeLorean in Back to the Future.
Of course.
Which had to be powered by a bolt of lightning. And then in the later films, I seem to remember he had a little sort of nuclear reactor thing that was fueled by banana skin. Remember that?
I do remember that. Do you know what? That's not come up. Nobody has suggested that in the comments. We've had, there must be 30 comments on this subject in the comments on the YouTube, and not one person. You're the first person who's mentioned the DeLorean. So
yeah. Well, it was great, wasn't it? So I often thought, I need to charge my car. Could I just wait for a lightning bolt? Go and park next to a tree or something in a storm.
Good idea.
But no, DC Various Vids 8082 said, for me, the car on screen I wanted to own was interesting was the Mustang GT in Bullet and the Bouldermobile in Wacky Races. The Mustang you could probably buy. The Bouldermobile, quite so much.
It's going to be like as rare as that Twingo electric you saw in Rome, isn't it?
Yes.
That's quite a leap,
And
isn't it, from the
Stephen,
Mustang GT to the Bouldermobile, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of
yeah, they're quite different, aren't they? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
sorry, I interrupted.
Stephen Wensley 9328 says every Nordic Noir series recently seems to have a Polestar for the lead to drive around in. Yeah, somebody's doing quite well in their placement department, isn't there? So
Yes,
normally you'll see quite a lot of cars in like British dramas, for example, and it's because that particular manufacturer has decided that it's something they're going to do. So
yes.
you always see in British dramas, you see a Kia police car, and it's the same Kia police car because Kia have decided that it's a good way to get publicity around the cars. Now you don't see real Kia police cars anywhere. They just don't. They didn't sell any to the police, but only in dramas do you see these cars.
Excellent.
Stephen also says apparently Tesla has racked up more than 700 movie and TV appearances, with the BMW i3 and Renault Zoe also appearing frequently.
Yeah, I've seen a few
I can't say
i3s.
I've ever noticed a Tesla.
No, nor have
Yeah.
I. There must be seven. I mean, it wasn't in a film, but Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm had an i3. Then he had a BMW iX, which I imagine the product placement went a bit wrong because there was a scene of him shouting at it, trying to get it to do something with the voice recognition, and it doing the exact opposite. Which I think that was. So I imagine someone was getting, yeah, telling off the next morning when they said, "Who gave them that car?" So anyway, on the subject, I was surprised there was any comments on this on the subject of camping in cars because the previous week I'd slept in the Ionic 5 and didn't have the best night's sleep, I must admit, but it was a useful thing. It saved me having to put a tent. But there have been quite a few comments about this. Simon Evans 8979 said, I don't know why this has sneaked in because I haven't realised now it's got nothing to do with electric cars. But he says I went to the Reading Festival and slept on a boat. I went to sleep in the river and I woke to the sound check of Whitesnake. 1980 was a great year. That's all the comment says. So, I mean, I can't.
One of my sons is currently at the Reading Festival, actually, but he's not sleeping in a car. He's sleeping in a tent, which is will probably be stinky beyond belief by now.
And I can pretty much guarantee you won't wake up to the sound of a sound check by Whitesnake because I don't think they're going anymore. But anyway, so Carl in San Diego, who's a regular commenter, a friend of the show, says thanks for sharing the video of your car camping mattress, Mike. You're welcome. This is one of the things we checked when buying an EV. Can you fit in the back to sleep? I mean, that's niche, isn't it? If you're looking around a car, you might think, how quick does it charge? What's the range? Can we two of us sleep in the back of it? Anyway, Carl in San Diego was important. This led us to the EV6, but we eventually bought a BMW i4, and it's brilliant. So there you go. If you're planning to camp, if you're planning to get kicked out by your other half, and you have an electric car, BMW i4 seems to be the ticket, really. So there we go. And finally on this subject, Matt B4721 says, as Mike says, there's a whole industry involved in camping in cars. Yeah, which I didn't know, but it turns out there is. I recently saw a video about camping in a Tesla Model Y. There's a special box arrangement for the boot, which had a tiny kitchen in and a bed going on top. There was this strange or special storage box that went on the trailer hitch, which is mainly used for storage for bed parts, etc. There you go. Who knew?
Now, I learned something interesting about sleeping in cars, Mike.
Yeah.
Which was, you might remember the original Fiat Panda had seats that went completely flat so you could make a bed and you could sleep in it if you wanted to. It wasn't terribly comfortable because they looked like jiffy bags over a metal frame, didn't they? The original Fiat Panda seats.
Yeah.
But the reason that the Italians are quite keen on having room for a bed in their car is because traditionally they don't leave home until they're married, which will be in their mid to late 20s.
Okay.
So they live with their parents.
I see where this is
going.
going.
And that means they don't have anywhere to get intimate. Okay. So they need room to lie down in their car. So in Italy, and I did check this with some Italian car manufacturers, and it's absolutely true. It is a thing that they like their estate cars or they like their practical hatchbacks with fold-down seats so that they have room for intimacy, shall we say.
Okay. This is interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you got to. I mean, if you're young, it doesn't matter, does it? Fiat Panda seats, it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, I'm a bit old for that kind of carry on now, but that's fascinating. That's really good. Tom, we're often accused of just reading
We've
out the
gone
nice.
over.
We're often accused of just reading out the nice bits and pieces and nice comments that we get from people on YouTube. So I've thrown in three moans this week. So can you take them
Yes.
away?
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll do one. So Jules Morgan 7032 said, "Love the show, but why do you always give Voxhalls a hard time? Can I just remind you, the Astra Electric was given the top award for efficiency in your annual awards last year."
Yeah,
Well, I don't think I do give Voxhalls a hard time. I will give them criticism where necessary. So I think that their strategy at the moment of kind of dumping cars onto the market so that they depreciate so massively is a little odd, but I'm sure they have their reasons for it. But I like the cars. I think the Corsa is a great car. Mocha is okay. The Astra I really like. It's just expensive for what it is compared to rivals. But if you get one on a lease, I would absolutely have it. In fact, we've seriously considered swapping the Leaf for some sort of Vauxhall because they are so cheap on a lease or when they're a year old.
there you go.
So no, I've
Yeah.
nothing against them.
We'll blame Nicola and Ginny for that one, shall we? Shall we say? I'm ambivalent,
Yeah.
but I would say they are probably the more vocal critics of Vauxhall than perhaps you are. So
Yeah.
okay, that's fair enough.
So then we've got Andy Twist 433 who's saying, "Please stop droning on about the Skoda Enyaq. Could we just have one episode where you don't mention it, or does that mean the check from Skoda won't arrive?" Now, a check from Skoda would be quite nice,
It would be nice,
but
wouldn't
we
it?
don't get one. What I would say about Skoda is that we'll stop droning on about them when they stop making good cars. But we're a car advice site, and Skodas are great cars. They are really good. I can't really think of a duffer, and they're the cars that we'd buy and drive. I mean, Ginny is obsessed with the Enyaq because it slots in with her life perfectly, doesn't it? So we can't. We can only stop talking about Skodas when we stop giving decent advice about cars.
Yeah. And you got to like the irony of saying don't stop talking about Skodas by sending us a message saying stop talking about Skodas. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not lost on me.
Yeah. Dario Rain 9943. For the love of God, please sort out Ginny's camera and lighting. It's spoiling my favourite podcast. Love you guys. Thanks, Dario. Mike, do you have any news on that?
Yeah, I have news on this because we reached a low point last week. I think. I mean, you could see that there was somebody talking, but you couldn't make out any facial features really. So I've bought at my own expense, which I'll try and claim back off Ben. If you're listening, Ben, please sign this off quite quickly. I bought a webcam as advised by many people on the site. So this is going to go. I mean, getting it to Jenny is another story. Getting her to use it is another story entirely as well. But I bought 40 quid HD webcam, so you'll be able to see in full high definition. It'd be a better show. I mean, Ginny's laptop. I mean, that thing's had more lives, isn't it? That's had more lives than a cat. That thing. It's been dropped. It's been thrown. It's been left on planes. It's been. I mean, Apple should put that in a museum when Ginny's finished with it, because the amount of abuse that thing's gone through. It's incredible that it still works, isn't it? Because I mean, the batteries stop working. It only works when it's plugged in. It really is.
Yeah, it is astonishing. So now people will be able to see in high definition Ginny's paint patches on the.
They'll be able to see the brush strokes of the sample pots, won't they? Now, yeah.
I don't think my camera's great either. So if it works, Mike, I'll get one too.
Yeah,
as a treat to everybody, so they can see my grey hairs.
Yeah, and we dropped enough hints, but we never got sent one, so I've had to pay from my own pocket. No. So you do make webcams, and you would like to have, you'd like to stop talking about Skoda Enyaqs, then perhaps send us one. But anyway, that's it. We've overrun again. I'm sorry for the park run guy who's doing a 45-minute run this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you have, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, please like and subscribe, because it helps with the algorithm, helps us get us more listeners. And if you're wondering why we're talking about comments, if you're listening to this on the podcast platform, we have this video also on YouTube where we have comments below. So please do tell us what you're thinking. For us, that's it. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.